to Jacey's Creek. My name's Emily, and today we are doing Season 3, Episode 10 of Jacey's Creek / Dawson's Creek. So this is the only episode, one of the only episodes that Pacey's in. He's in 100, I believe, 24 episodes, and there are 128 episodes. And this is one of the first episodes that we have that Pacey is not in it. So it's just fully Joey today, which is fun. And I believe there was another episode where he wasn't in it, but I can't really remember. But this is episode 10, First Encounters of the Close Kind, and then it came out on December 15th, 1999. Before we get started, if you have not followed my Instagram, make sure to follow it. It's Witter and Potter. My TikTok is Pacey and Joey. And lastly, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, put on your post notifications, put on your post notifications wherever you get this podcast, to be completely honest. And that's Jacey's Creek Podcast. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first scene that we have is scene 1 of Joey. So she is in Dawson's bedroom. They're watching the documentary that they did with the witchcraft, and Graham's come on the screen, and she said, "And what happened there is proof positive that the good Lord does not take lightly to those who dabble in the black arts." And Joey tosses her overnight back through the window and climbs in, and Dawson's like, "Nice entrance." And Joey noticed what Dawson's working on, and she said, "Dawson, isn't there a limited number of the times people can watch their own movie?" Which, burn. And I love how she says that, just completely calls him out. And so Dawson says, "I gotta be prepared. We got a Q&A session after the screening." And Joey says, "Ooh, the screening. How's Sunday?" I love how she says Sunday. I'm gonna start saying that. And Dawson says, "Let's not blow this completely out of proportion, shall we?" And Dawson he completely avoids Joey's glance. And Joey asks, "What's the matter?" And Dawson says, "Nothing." And Joey said, "Could it be?" And Dawson says, "What?" And he starts packing a bag, and Joey says, "Dawson Leary, the gift of young, self-motivated hoarders. Capeside owns Shakespeare's and Wonder can be nervous." And Dawson says, yeah, of course I am. I mean, it's one of those to be fish in a small pond that is Capeside." And Joey says, "But entirely another to swim in talent bowl with 100 of equal competitors." And Dawson says, "Exactly. And thank you for that gut-wrenching visual." And Joey says, "Now, I may be a little biased here because, well, let's face it, I am the stars of the movie, but it's really good. I mean, look at it this way. For better or for worse, this experience will take you one step closer to realizing your dreams. Besides, you don't have to spend the entire weekend with a complete stranger." Which, this episode is kind of based off of Joey, but in another sense, it's based off of like Dawson and his movies and everything with that. So I feel like there's a lot of Dawson scenes in this episode, which I don't feel like we really see, even though it's called Dawson's Creek. And so there's less scenes that there would be if it was like Pacey and Joey. Like normally there's like 20 scenes, but as you can tell from the first scene, like it's based off of like Dawson and his movies and how he's going to like go and show everybody, and it's a big deal. And with Joey, like we just see college and how that will end up. So Dawson says, "Hey Joey, it never once crossed my mind that you wouldn't be making out there," because Joey says, "Yeah, I mean, I signed up for a college tour and they pair me off with one of their students. Those are the rules." And Dawson says, "It never crossed my mind that you won't make it out of here." And Joey says, "It's easy for you to say, Dawson." And Dawson says, "Come on, Joe. Look at it the ordinary impulse. Look at this weekend as an adventure, alright? I mean, this is our into the real world. You know, this for a weekend, it could be a glimpse at the rest of our lives. And Joey said, or it could be the weekend when all of our hopes and dreams just come crashing down around us. I mean, focusing to withdraw from mainstream society and spend the rest of our lives as this silent and shadows of ourselves. It's just the thought. Like, Joey is like not being optimistic, but you can just tell that Dawson is. And you can like tell like throughout this episode, like that's kind of how she is and that's kind of how he is. But like with this, like it's kind of proof that like Dawson sees the like Cape side as a whole nother thing than Joey does. I don't think that Dawson ever sees it like that he's stuck there, like unlike Joey, who always feels like she's stuck at Cape side. And so it's a little bit different when you think about it. So then we have scene 2 of Joey, and it goes to the university where Dawson, Joey, Andy, and Jack are scrolling past the buildings. And Dawson says, I feel like the legendary difference and the close accountings of their third kind. You know, the director's cut where he's following the motherships and meets the aliens. And Joey says, newsflash, Dawson's, we are the aliens. Which I like how she says that. Basically, it was kind of like where everyone feels like they're like seeing like these high schoolers come out and they're like, wow, they're so tiny. And so Jack says, so what are you thinking, sis? And he steps out to Andy, and Andy says, these students enjoy the district of attending America's finest college, founded in 1626. It's a name after British Congress, who ended up donating his entire collection of books. And ordinary faculty teaching here in the Congress wilderness could hardly have imagined it, that over the last 3 centuries, it will become known throughout the world as a permanent center for teaching and research. Which, okay, why does Andy know all that? Is it just my opinion? Like, I know it's just Andy's character, but I seem like that's kind of random, in my opinion. And so, Dawson laughs at her for saying this, and he says you should write a catalog. And Jack says, it is a catalog, Dawson. I think she sent away for it when she was about 9. And Andy says, class of 2005, baby. Early admissions, I'm gonna ace this interview. And Joey says, well, I better go and meet my roommate. And she's reading the piece of paper, and she says, AJ Monner? I said that completely wrong. And Andy says, Joey, you are gonna have a blast. I took the junior tour last year. And Joey's like, as a sophomore? And Andy says, early bird gets into college. And Dawson says, what are you doing, Jack? And Jack says, hanging out, I guess, to do the tours. And Dawson looks at his watch. Well, he says, well, it's about time. And Jack says, yep. And Andy says, I'm so psyched. And Joe says, me too, me too. And all of them say goodbye, and they go into different directions. Which I feel like this was kind of one of those things where they left Pacey out of this like whole episode because all of them were going to college. And I think the show kind of knew that he wasn't going to college. And like you can tell that Andy's like very like nervous and jittery about this, and like Joey's just like okay, well, we're going to this and we have to do this and I have to meet my roommate. Like she's just following the kind of like up and down by Dawson's like kind of psyched by it, but like, and Jack's just like, and Dawson's just amazed by Andy, and like Jack is just like, okay, she's been doing this since she was like little, so yeah. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 3 of Joey. So Joey comes to the dorms and she approaches the room with 381 on the door, and she knocks, and after no one replies, she opens the door and finds a guy sitting on his desk with an iBook on his lap. And Joey says, excuse me, and he goes, shh, and Joey says, sorry, I'm just, and AJ goes, shh, just a second. And Joey impatiently waits until the guy finally acknowledges her, and he says, yes, what is it? And Joey says, I'm sorry, I'm looking for AJ. this her room? And AJ goes, no, this is not her room. And Joey says, she's supposed to be in my roommate for the weekend junior tour. Do you have any idea where I might find her? And AJ goes, nope. And Joey says, well, the room on my card says room 381. And AJ goes, I'm certain it does. And Joey says, and this is room 381. And AJ goes, you bitch, bitch. And Joey says, and you can't tell me where AJ Mahler. And AJ goes, I didn't say that. What I said was I didn't know where you could find her. Him I could point you directly to. I'm AJ. And that makes you, reading off the card, Potter, Josephine. Which, I don't know, it's kind of awkward. Like, why would they room her up with someone who is a guy? Like, maybe they did think that, like, he was a girl, which is a little bit awkward, but at the same time, alright, that's chill. So then, like, he continues on by, like, after he says, I'm AJ, like, how can I help you? And you must be Joey. He goes, I guess our gender and marriage names have fostered a pre-conscious situation. And Joey says, to say the least. And AJ goes, before you start crying and calling home, I promise to give you one of the beds. And if you're really nice to me, I'll leave the lights on for you. And Joey says, I'm not staying here. I mean, this is not what I signed up for, okay? I'm supposed to be spending the weekend with someone who's going to show me what college is like. Tell me what to expect. Someone, and AJ says, with ovaries, and Joey says, yeah. And AJ says, listen, Josephine, and Joey says, it's Josephine, Joey. And AJ goes, Joey, listen. This is what college is like. Guys and girls living together, mostly in harmony. I mean, at Columbia, they even have co-ed bathrooms. And if they're not up for that, maybe you should be visiting a women's college instead. And my cousin actually has, like, a college that has a co-ed bathroom, and she says it's literally the most awkward thing, because, like, she'll be taking a shower and then right when she sees a guy and she's like, no. That's how she feels. And Joey, like, tosses her bag on the ground and she says, look, maybe you're right. There's really no reason two people of the opposite sex can't spend one night together in the same room. And AJ says, that's my girl. Now, if you don't mind, and he says, like, with, like, an Indian cheap voice, like, a big college boy has important papers to write. Little high school girl take a walk around campus. And Joey says, you're kicking me out. And AJ says, you're kicking yourself out. So if you have 2 more hours of unadulterated silence, and Joey says, that's not. And AJ says, careful, careful. Say fair, and you'll really show your age. And he says, oh, and Potter, Josephine, shut the door on your way out. Otherwise, I'm gonna have those idiot icon majors playing nerve baseball down the hall. And Joey grabs her bag and just slams the door on her way out, which I kind of like. And so for this, like, I would say, like, AJ's, like, not bad looking, but AJ is just, like, you can just tell that he's kind of a jerk and a know-it-all, which I don't really like people who are like that, but that's kind of how Joey is. So them two, like, personalities, like, they kind of, like, work out. And obviously, he didn't lose her, like Rory Gilmore did in Gilmore Girls. Like, he didn't lose her completely to, like, how good is my ice cream? But it wasn't like Joey was naive in any type, like, kind of way, but at the same time, like, it was kind of like one of those things where you could just tell she was not happy about it, and Joey is mostly not happy about anything when you really think about it. But it really did kind of, like, it was a difference between college and high school and how everything worked out there, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like, I feel like this is kind of like, she signed up for this tour, like, this is probably what you're gonna get for college, because I bet college students put it together and it's not that big of a deal. But I'm surprised no one ever, like, greet them and help them out to their rooms or something. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 4 of Joey. And so she's walking through the campus like AJ told her to do, and she finds Dawson sitting on a bench, and she says, "Dawson, hey," and she sits next to him, and Dawson says, "Hey, Joe," and Joey says, "Hey, how's the screening going?" And she looks down and obviously upset, and Joey said, like, he looks down and he's obviously upset, and Joey says, "Come on, it can't be that bad," and Dawson says, "It was certainly unmasculinely disaster," and Joey says, "What do those hippers though few brats know anything?" And so I feel like this kind of goes back to season 2, where like Joey stood up to Dawson for like, or not stand up to Dawson, but stand up to Miss Kelly, who was Mitch's girlfriend at the time, where she told Dawson like his movies weren't that great. And so like Dawson now is having that same thing. Like, if you have 2 people telling you your movies aren't great, you don't quit, and that's kind of what Joey's saying right now. And so Dawson says, "Maybe they're right," and Joey says, "Come on, you don't mean that," and Dawson says, "You know, maybe the problem with having such big dreams is that you never question whether or not you have talent to back it up. What if I just simply don't know what it takes to be a great filmmaker?" And Joey says, "Dawson, I've been there from the beginning. To you, the day you decided to pick up your parents'" ooh, sorry, that's my water bottle falling, "camera and make a movie of your own, the day you said for the first time out loud that you were going to be a filmmaker, I had the privilege of you taking that dream and make it a reality. And you know what? I'm really proud." And she puts his arm around him. I feel like some episodes there are like where Dawson and Joey are close, and this is one of those scenes / episodes, but like other episodes it's kind of like where Joey and Dawson never talk, they never speak to each other, and they disagree about everything. And so some of the episodes I do feel like it's like the point of view of what Dawson thinks that everything's gonna happen, but in like other points I'm like, Joey is the main character, so maybe like this is her point. But I feel like I saw this comment where Dawson hears what he wants to hear, which is very true. And I feel like that's kind of one of these scenes where Dawson hears what he wants to hear, not from Joey but from other people. And so Joey is that one person that can comfort him because she is his safe person, like, most of the time. And so yeah, she portrays him a lot, but at the same time, like, it's one of those scenes where you can just tell like Joey is a good friend at times, where she, like, whenever Dawson does need her, like, she'll be there for him. So then the next scene that we have is scene 5 of Joey. And so this scene goes with the lecture hall, where Joey sits among other students with AJ, and well, AJ comes over and he sits by her and he says, "Freshman English, huh? A good one to visit." And Joey says, "Don't tell me you're in this class," and AJ says, "Kind of." And Joey, reaching over to get her bag, like, takes off her bag and sits, like, he sits next to her, and he says, you wanna sit?" And AJ says, "No, I can't." And Joey says, "So, I guess the professor is really late." And AJ says, "No, he's not coming. They do that a lot. And he's some poor, scrum-run undergraduate teaching assistant has to come in and try to rally the troops for what they call to the whole class discussion." And AJ, or like he says it to the whole class, and he says discussion session. And AJ walks to the teacher's desk and addresses the class, and he says, "Hi guys, Professor Taylor is at some science conference in Seattle, so you're stuck with me again. Now, we have a lot visiting high schoolers in our midst today, so I thought we'd take a break from the ongoing great books discussion and ask some of them at what books they consider great." And pointing to Joey, he says, "How about you?" and the great books discussion, and asks some of them what books they would consider. Oh, sorry. "And how about you?" And the cheap, sweet, brown hair girl. And Joey says, "What's my favorite book?" And AJ says, "You read, don't you?" And Joey says, "Little Women." And AJ says, "It's May Alcott." Interesting. Now, I haven't read that since I was 10 or so. As far as I remember, it's the least version of Jane Eyre's. Something about a girl with a boy's name, and Joey says the girl's name is Jo. She has 3 sisters, a mother, a father who's normally running around, and he is very impractical, and he's not very good at providing them materials in life. And AJ says, that's right, they're poor, but they have each other, and there's something to the boy next door. Yeah, that's coming back to me. Okay, so Little Woman, Brian's American classic, yes, but great book. Worthy of including the literature canon. What do we think? And the student one says, no way, this book is completely anti-feminist in the spirit. And student 2 says, I condense. I mean, the hero supposedly burns with this artist genius, but ultimately she gives up all her dreams and gets married and starts popping out babies. And then student 3 says, God's a minor writer. Most of all, what she writes purely for money. And AJ says, and what's the lesson here? That we can't say the book is simply because we identify with the hero or heroic. And Joey is walking down the steps when AJ catches up there, and AJ says, wait. And Joey says, why can't you just stick one and over your overeducation minions on me? Try again. And AJ says, admittedly, we were a little harsh. And Joey says, I condense. And AJ says, you said you wanted a college experience. And Joey says, don't be so kind. What you did was insensitive. You hardly know me. And AJ says, maybe I just wanted some naive high school girl, but I am exactly looking forward to getting a taste of my fun part of high school experience, not just the mean, bitter part. Do you spend so much time starting at an iBook that you forget that the part even exists? And AJ apologized and says, how can we start over? Give me a chance to show you what college is really about. What do you say? Which, I feel like he was being a jerk with this, because there was a lot of things he could have shown her, but instead he showed her like the part that didn't even really make sense. Like, he just saw this like senior high schooler coming in, and all of a sudden like he's just this freshman college student, and like now he's like, oh, this and all that. Like he said earlier, if you say that's not fair, you're really showing your age. But like he's kind of showing his age in this, because like I bet the Little Woman was something special to Joey, and AJ kind of like took it from her a little bit. Like he was like, haha, like screw that, like I'm just gonna show you what the real college experience is like. But like Joey knows that's not what she wants, and yeah, she may be like this naive high school girl who just comes in, but she was like, I was really looking forward to all this, and he was like, oh, my bad. But I feel like that was kind of mean, because like, what did you expect her to want? Like, did you expect her to want this? Like, are you really that insensitive? And so then we get to the next scene, where it is scene 6 of Joey, and AJ and Joey are walking along the hallways, and Joey says, you know, as much as I appreciate your willingness to spend time with me, I gotta ask, where are we going? And AJ says, we'll see. And AJ takes her into some room with a lot of books, and Joey says, okay, what is this place? And AJ say, a rare book and manuscript library. And Joey says, and we are supposed to be in here? And AJ says, what's the matter? Are you afraid of library police are gonna catch and snitch us? I just want to show you something. And AJ pulls a box down from a high shelf, and Joey says, what? And AJ tells her to have a seat, and they both sit at the table as AJ pulls something out of the box, and AJ says, look at this. And Joey says, Little Woman? And AJ says, not quite. The book we know today as Little Woman was ordinarily published in 2 separate volumes. This is just the first. It's Lewis Maine Walcott's very own copy. Go ahead and look at it carefully. Let's see what this favorite book of yours has to offer. And Joey looks down at the book in awe, and she flips through it, stopping at the page, and Joey says, this is the part where Joe and Meg go to Miss Grandma's party. In reading from the book, she says, Joe saw a big redhead red-headed youth approached her corner, and fearing he might engage her, she slips into the She found herself face to face with the Lawrence boy. And AJ, reading, says, "Don't mind, stay if you like." And Joey says, "Shall I disturb you?" And AJ said, "Not a bit. I only came here because I don't know how many people and felt rather strange at you, you know?" And Joey said, "So I did. Don't go away, please, sir, unless you rather." And AJ says, the boy sat down again and looked at his boots. "How's your cat, Miss March?" And Joey says, "Nicely, thank you, Mr. Lawrence. But I ain't Miss March, I'm only Joe." And Joey closes the book and hands him. And Joey says, "My mom used to read me it. That's why she named me Josephine. It was her favorite book." And AJ says, "Was?" And Joey says, "She passed away." And AJ says, "I'm sorry to hear that." And Joey says, "I guess that's why I read it and reread it, because when I do, it's like she's with me." And AJ says, so it's like a friend, the book." And Joey says, "Yeah, exactly." And AJ says, "Well, you can never have too many friends, Potter, comma Josephine." And Joey says, "So, Mrs. AJ Mullen, what is your favorite book?" Someone pronounced tone by Henry. And AJ says, "Are you ready for this?" "The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe." And Joey says, "Well, that sounds rather infant." And AJ says, "Exactly. But it's like the best things in life. Simple, sweet, and magical." So I think with this, it really shows how like Joey's mom is like part of Joey whenever she reads stuff. And it's kind of like this very like sentimental scene, and we figure out why that book means so much to Joey. And I like how AJ apologizes by like taking the books and taking her somewhere where she could have that moment. And I feel like when Joey like gets closer to guys, like they do something special with her after they mess up, which I find always so funny to me. I'm like, okay, like you just messed up, so you take her to the library. Like, but with other stuff, like it was kind of like, not that they mess up, but like that they have like that sweet special moment with her. And I feel like Joey is like one of those girls, she can be intimidating at times, but like when a boy like falls for her, I feel like they kind of fall for her like for a little bit. And whether that's because they need a rebound or they like actually fall for Joey, it's kind of like one of those things where they're attached for a little bit and they do something sweet like this. And like we'll keep seeing that, but with this I feel like it's kind of like a rebound for Joey, what AJ is. Kind of like how Jen was a rebound for Pacey. And so there was a lot of difference in here where Joey kind of finally meets someone outside of high school, outside of Cape Side, and she finally gets to see what the real world is like, the real boys are like, and not the one from down the street or the one at school or the best friend's best friend, you know what I mean? So then we have scene 7 of Joey, and she's on the train port, and AJ walks like Joey out, and AJ says, "I hope I didn't keep you up all night." And Joey says, "You talked for 8 hours about Eunice's." And AJ says, "Yeah, I know. Sometimes it's hard that the teaching assistant stuff out of your head, especially when you're really passionate about something, you know? Because then your inner geek just runs wild." And he says, "So what about you, Joey Potter? What are you passionate about? What are your eggs for?" And Joey says, "I don't know. I mean, I wish I did." And AJ says, "But," and Joey says, "Well, for the past couple of years, my life has kind of revolved around this boy. How pathetic is that?" And I keep mentioning like some episodes she mentions Dawson, and other episodes she doesn't. And so AJ says, "But you guys aren't together?" And Joey says, "No." And AJ says, "Do you think what a mouthful is?" And Joey shakes her head no, and AJ says, "It's a math thing. It's hard to explain, but imagine yourself shrink to a size, a pinpoint, sitting on a surface of a donut. Look around you and it takes you sitting on a flat disc, right? But you go down 1 centimeter and sit on a curve, and suddenly it's like a straight line." And Joey says, you kind of lost me somewhere about the donut. And AJ says, in other words, the way something appears from afar might be different from the way it appears in your nearsighted eye. And Joey says, so in order for me to figure it out, I should keep myself a distance. And AJ says, take your face out of the eye book. Look, would it be alright if I were to, phone you sometime? And Joey says, well, it wouldn't suck. And AJ says, okay. And Joey says, you got a pen? And AJ takes one out of his pocket and says, oh yeah, do you have a piece of paper? And Joey checks her pockets and says no. And AJ says, oh. And Joey takes his hand and writes her number down, and he offers his hand to shake, but Joey wrote on his right hand and they used their left instead. And so she says bye and he says bye. And I kind of like that because it was like Joey was kind of finally moving on from Dawson, and you can kind of see that. Like, obviously there was Pacey, but like Pacey was kind of like at this point like her friend that was helping her move on. But in this sense it was kind of like finally another boy, like I said, that wasn't in Cape Side, that didn't know her, that didn't know her family, that didn't know anything about her like past. And so finally she gets to have like this fresh start. So then she boards the train, and Dawson and Nikki, who's like the Principal Korean's daughter, are walking through, and Dawson says, Joey, hey, this is Nikki, Joey. And Joey says, hi, nice to meet you. And Dawson says, she's going to our school. And Joey looks back at AJ and waves, and Dawson notices, and Dawson, being the nosy person that he is, says, who's that? And Joey says, my roommate. And he looks confused, and he's like, oh, but he's that guy? And so then we have the last scene of Joey, where they're back at Cape Side, and Joey and Dawson are laying in his bed, and Dawson says, is it just me, or is the protest of going to college seems a lot larger? And Joey says, I know what you mean. Is it the light at the end of the tunnel, or is the light coming soon? And Dawson says, or is it both? And Joey says, well, definitely going to take some getting used to. And Dawson says, do you ever have one of those moments when you just kind of realize the world has stepped up and completely blindsided you? I've been feeling like a career in fast food. Welcome to Taco Bell. Can I take your order? It's kind of like the rolls to the tongue. And Joey says, Dawson, everything in life is not about winning. I mean, you could find joy in the process. You have to love what you do. And Dawson says, good point. Which begs the question, what life lessons did you stumble upon this weekend? And Joey says, well, college to me has always been about the hell out of Cape Side, right? And Dawson says, right. And Joey says, well, I'm thinking it may be more than that. I mean, it's scary for sure, but it's the world of full passionate people. I mean, people who get excited about books and ideas and theories, and it kind of excites me. And Dawson says, my suspicion has been confirmed. And Joey says, what do you mean? And Dawson says that you're really big gig. And Joey says, so is it just me, or does this room seem a lot smaller for all of a sudden? And Dawson says, really? And I was kind of thinking it seemed safe. And Joey gets up to leave, and she says, I'll see you, Dawson. And Dawson says, see you, Joey. And they go out the window. Like, this kind of confirms what I've been saying, like, the whole time, where they're each other's safe place, and Dawson's, like, that's her safe room, and that's Dawson's safe room. And so, when I was saying earlier, like, no one really knows her, and it was kind of like when she says, like, to get out the hell out of Cape Side, it was kind of like one of those things where really, like, a place where no one knows her. No one knows her past. No one knows her, like, present. No one knows nothing about her. And I feel like she likes that. It wasn't about the theories or the books or the ideas. It was about how it kind of excites her because she gets a whole new start. And so for that, it's kind of like one of those things that you really get to see with Joey, because it is like one of those things that excites her, because she finally gets that one, like, that fresh start that kind of comes up, and it doesn't, like, take her, like, anytime, like, it just gives her that, you know, right there, that right sudden pinpoint where it goes, oh, that's it. Like, no one knows me, no one knows anything about me. So this is great, and that's kind of what I mean with the whole college experience. Like, it wasn't about the college experience, like with Dawson it was about films, but with Joey it was about the people. And I think she really enjoyed how much people were different to her. And so that is kind of where I went with this. And obviously we didn't see Pacey because I think they kind of like excluded Pacey out because he, I mean, when you really think about it, Pacey wouldn't really enjoy this college tour. He would probably like be eating the food or asking for the restroom, kind of like the Witch Island. And so that is kind of what I think about when I think about Pacey in college. So, if you like this episode, please make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel. That's Jacey's Creek Podcast, where I post every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's also other platforms that you can listen to, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure to review this podcast with kind words, please, only. Make sure you comment, subscribe, share, whatever you need to do. And also, you can catch every episode again on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I would love to hear your thoughts on Instagram. That's Witter and Potter. And my TikTok is Pacey and Joey. I hope to see you guys again at Friday and Saturday and Sunday. I love hearing your guys' thoughts, so please make sure to comment down below. Bye guys!